Morning all. Beautiful morning here. G'day, Bubby. How you going, buddy Bobby? Beautiful morning. Sunshine. Can't beat winter skies. Starting to change colour. Getting a little bit more blue, which means the deep of winter's nearly ending here. Still a couple of months of cooler weather, but then we're back to some nice 30s and 35s. Man, birds are noisy this morning. See, they don't come down much, do they?
No.
Every now and then they do, but
Not very far.
someone using an angle grinder somewhere. Can hear it. I was thinking in that hallway going into the laundry when we get the extensions done, should put some sort of heavy like curtain there. Not a door, not a door.
Yeah,
You could put a door if you wanted to,
no,
but
no door. I can get that tried done.
my new cup. Probably can't see it too well. My old one died. Yeah, mate, go for it. What are you having for supper? You know I'm interested in food. That's the thing to have. Yum, beef stew. I could eat stew all year round. Chunky bits of vegetable, meat, chuck whatever you like in there. Add whatever flavour you like. Crusty bread, and you're away. The beauty about a stew, let's say you've only got a little bit left, you can add whatever you like to it and turn it into a hearty soup. I've done that many times. I think, there's only a bit of stew left. After a couple of days, I think, what do I do? I'll add some beans, a bit of this and a bit of that, add a bit of stock, and you've got a nice thick soup. See, awesome hook. I did a couple of videos of cooking. I was thrilled. I've been waiting for her to do some cooking videos forever. Beef and barley. That was one of them. What was the other one? I forget now. I'm old. That's right, turkey meatballs. Actually, turkey's not that popular here. I used to eat turkey legs when I was playing sport, recommended by a physio saying that's good for protein. And good turkey legs taste a bit like beef anyway. Yeah, but it's not popular. We don't have Thanksgiving here, and not many Aussies. Yeah, don't throw food away. That's the way to go, buddy. I don't do that. I turn it into something else. But turkeys, you go to people's, like I don't cook a turkey for Christmas. Some people do. Who do we know that does? Does
And sometimes I'll do a turkey breast roll.
Jess's mum does turkey,
Yeah.
doesn't she? But yeah, it's just not a popular meat. What you'll see in the major stores is turkey meatballs, but they're like little flattened out meatballs, like patties. But they're good for you if you're playing sport. If you want that extra protein pumped in, turkey legs in general are good. The breast meat, for me, most people overcook it, so it's pretty dry when you get to it. So it's not, unless someone does it really well, it's not well done. You got to stuff a turkey, in my opinion. I'd chuck in, I never cooked a turkey actually, but I'd chuck in lemons cut up, oranges cut up, a stuffing of sorts, onions, so it had all that moisture in there, you know, to permeate the white meat, because nothing worse than dry turkey. Awful. It's funny about birds, because when I was a kid, a long time ago, turkey pot pies sounds good. But when I was a kid years ago, chicken was very expensive. Now, unless you lived in the bush and you raised your own, which I've done. But if you don't raise your own, it used to be very expensive meat to buy. But now it's the cheapest meat in the world. You get chicken for next to nothing. You get a whole cooked roast chicken, good size, for about $8 or $9 Australian. So that'd be about $6.50 US. And that feeds a family of 4, you know what I mean? I like to get them when they're on special, when they mark them down to something like $5 or $4. And the wife will pick all the meat off them, and then we freeze the meat in bags so we can use the chicken meat over the next few weeks. Saves a few bucks, but it's good just to pull out some chicken and then decide what you want to do with it. You know, bit of stock, bit of noodles, chicken noodle soup, sandwiches. It's not that I'm a tight bastard when it comes to money, but I do like saving it. You know, if you don't spend it, you save money. There's lots of little, oh yeah, bones. I should do a bone broth video, though I don't really need to. I won't do it yet. But a bone broth video, you can, with bone broth, you don't have to use it in cooking if you don't want to. You can just reheat a little bit and have a cup of bone broth. It's got all the things that our body needs. It's got all the fundamentals of life in it, to be honest, bone broth. But you've got to get shin beef. You've got to get something with a lot of marrow bone in it, because it has collagen, natural collagen, which we as a species use up very well. Yeah, that's right. It goes through all our systems. Oh, my grandmother used to say, good bones make you have good bones. I never knew what she meant as a kid, but I get it now. So if you cook up, look, cooking a bone broth takes about 5 or 6 hours minimum, even slower if you can. But you end up with a great broth. And you can add things to it if you like, but I like keeping it simple, just with the bone broth itself. And you don't end up with any fat, you skim all that off. They've just started selling it, haven't they, in one of our supermarkets, that bone broth in the bottle,
Oh yeah.
near where the stock is. And I kid you not, it's probably maybe a pint of bone broth, $9. I nearly fell off my chair. I said, I can make that for about $1. What's going on? $9 for a pint of bone broth. The beauty of my grandmother's cooking, like I say, she'd always have a big old stock pot on the back of the stove, which went 24/7, her stove. It'd just be ticking over, and she would just keep adding stuff to this pot. We'd go there, and I'd think, that pot hasn't moved. She said to me, I just keep topping it up. She'll dish up a meal from it, and she'll chuck more bones in, or whatever's going. And yeah, Jello. Oh yeah, if you've got marrowbone jelly, it's like when you make a nice pea and ham soup. When you've finished, it's all thick, liquidy and yummy. You put it in the fridge after that, and overnight you can tip the bowl upside down. All the gelatine and marrowbone that's in that just solidifies it. It literally goes solid, but you know, solid enough that you can scoop stuff out of. That would be my favourite soup, pea and ham soup. So simple. We use yellow split peas. Many people use green split peas, and that's fine. I just find there is a slight bitterness to green. Hello, Awesome. I really enjoyed your cooking videos.
Yes, so did I.
Really enjoyed it. I like watching people do things that I don't do. And learn, I take little bits from them and put them in my little memory bank. Oh, absolutely. That's just down-to-earth, hearty cooking, and that's me. I might ponce around doing some fancy dishes every now and then, but the bottom line. Yeah, it went further than that, buddy. I'm a child of the 50s, and it wasn't till probably 52, 53 where they didn't have to do rationing, and they actually went nearly to 1960 with some things, so there was still rationing. So everybody had a garden. Yeah, and I thought that was great. You involved them on that level. That was brilliant. But that stuff that you cook is just down to earth food that's nutritious. It's pretty simple, and it's one of those things that everyone can get a good fill up on. Like I was saying to Buddy, we don't do a lot of turkey cooking in Australia. The only thing you'll find in our supermarket is little round pâtés.
Oh, well, turkey roll.
Yep, the Victory Garden. That's how I did my garden when I was younger, Buddy. Rotation, 6 rotations. Used to feed a lot of people. Like even in a small garden I had in a place called Augusta down south in my state here, right down the bottom. My wife worked in a nursing home. And I always grew more than we need, but we just take bucket loads over to them. And I've already told the story where a couple of old people would say to me, now it's heading towards winter, they'd say, where's me bloody tomatoes? I said, well, the season's ending. And they'd scoff and say, not good enough. Swedish meatballs, it sounds yum. I think you'll be surprised, Awesome, how many people will watch your cooking videos, because there's going to be differences in how you do things compared to other people. And if they're anything like me, I will go through and thought, yeah, I do it a bit differently, and I would certainly add this and not add that, but it gives people's ideas. I get loads of messages from people thanking me just for the basics, because we've got to be brutal here. If you're 30 years or under in this world at the moment, very few of them know how to cook. Yeah, don't be shocked, because you've got an advantage over me in many ways, is because you're an American cooking American type foods, which some of the foods I cook, people go, oh, that's Australian, or it's different, you know what I mean? So you will be surprised. Even if you just did a few videos a week.
Puts tags in.
I don't put tags
Yeah,
in.
but so awesome.
Is my wife saying, make sure Awesome puts tags in a video. I've never done that. She's always hassling me, put tags in, put tags in. That's the thing, Awesome. Already you're getting feedback from what people would change. Doesn't mean you got to change, but it's what they would do. I like my meatballs a little bit tighter, so I put less breadcrumbs in them, and maybe throw an egg in the mix for a binding thing. A little bit of difference. I don't use turkey. I'd use beef and pork, and I put things in like a bit of Worcestershire, a bit of HP, which is an English sauce. So it's not that I wouldn't follow your recipe, I just wouldn't follow it to the letter. And that bit I understand. Over the years, people have got back to me saying, oh, I wouldn't add the pepper in that, I'd certainly put in whatever. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's a good idea. So people look at your videos as a guide, is the best way to describe it. You do eat a lot of food. Americans seem to eat a lot of food. Like we won't, I don't even know what the time is now. What is it, 10? Just after 10 o'clock. We haven't eaten today. I have the occasional poached egg on toast, which I did the other day. But we probably eat around about 3:30, maybe 4, depends how we feel. So we haven't eaten since last night, but we don't feel hungry. And I've always worked on the principle. I usually look to my wife and say, you hungry now? She'll go, no. So we don't eat. And I say, what, in about an hour? And she say, yeah, that'll be all right. So there's no breakfast time, lunch time, or dinner time with us at all. It's like when we're hungry. Like I say, it doesn't mean we won't go out for a coffee somewhere and have a slice of cake, or you might sometimes have, or take the young fella with us, one of the grandkids, he'll have chips, might nibble a couple off his plate, but we don't have a hard and fast menu for the day, do you know what I mean? Like some people say, I have breakfast at 7 every morning. I'm thinking, okay.
Yeah, some people have to, though, with work or whatever.
Yeah.
They're not active, because that means they eat as much.
When I was working, like, done a fair bit of heavy work in my time, I'd always have my biggest meal of the day would be what we call smoko, which is a few hours after you've been to work, you stop for 20 minutes. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, buddy. Not many people suffer that when they come to my place, though. But I can tell, I already know Awesome well enough that she likes to feed people. I'm the same. I'm not sure what it is, but it gives me satisfaction that people enjoy the food, people consume the food. I'm not one, if someone doesn't like, say, something I've cooked because they don't eat, say, seafood, that doesn't bother me. I'm not upset by that at all. Wants to make a cheesecake. I'll give you a tip for younger people, and your son is one of them. Get him to write down on a piece of paper, hello witty widow, get him to write down on a piece of paper the things he'd like to make. And then he'll write them all down, and then on the other side of the paper say, well, which one are you going to do first? Hello Lois, how are you? Do you know what I mean? So then he can have a bit of a plan. It works. Kids tend to think, oh, I want to make pancakes, or I want to make cheesecake, as your son's saying. But that's work, and then they can tick them off, do the video, and we already know now that with him filming, you could do the reverse. You could film him without filming him, if you know what I mean.
Just his hands.
Yeah. Most of my videos are just on the pot, the pan, or what I'm doing. Occasionally I stick my ugly mug in front. Yeah, that's how it was, even in my extended family, like when I was a kid in the UK, you would never go hungry. The first thing you'd see if you walked into someone's place, they would say to you, have you eaten? And even if you said yes, they said, well, come and try this anyway. You know, there'd be some broth, or there'd be some sort of cake made, or pudding. Witty Widow is here for the soothing voice. Must be waiting for your voice, love.
No, yours.
Yeah, well, I always do that. My kids come here, and they know there's something here. My kids will just, what's the word to just say? It's, they inquire, like, well, what have you been cooking? And sure enough, they usually go home with a little bag of something or other. But it's like, I like doing it. I like cooking. I like cooking for people. I won't be doing that tomorrow. We're going out to lunch with a mysterious YouTuber.
Oh, you can say who it is, but we just won't film it.
Oh, righto, we're going out with Mel. for lunch. Going to a yum cha. That sounds good. Awesome. Even if you do a dummy run with a video and let him watch it. Yeah, flour, eggs, water, milk. I mean, you can live off that stuff, literally. Milk has got a lot of the vitamins and proteins we need. And flour's got all the stuffing that needs to fill our body. It's like damper. When I made that damper video, I must have made millions of dampers in my time. In all different sort of containers, different circumstances, in the bush, in kitchens. But it's just literally flour and water. You can fancy it up if you like. If you want to make it last a couple of days, you just throw a little bit of salt, tiny bit of salt in it. Remember reading about opal miners just before the turn of the 19th century. Chinese used to live in the mining areas too, but they just cooked and washed and got water for miners. But one of the staple things that they used to like is a broth. And the Chinese would make basically, looked a bit like pita bread. And they'd do a big bundle of that and drop a big pot of broth off, and the miners would pay them. So the broth could, you could keep broth going for a couple of days. And also the pita bread would last a couple of days, so it would only be like a few pennies, before the turn of the 19th century. So one of those things is that you can survive on very little food. Bacon and vegetable, yum. Well, that's the go. We just talked to Buddy earlier. He's got a stew he's having tonight. Got to have bread with it. I particularly like crusty bread. Like a Vienna loaf or something hard and crusty on the outside, baguette or something. But I do encourage you, Awesome, not only to do your cooking videos, but his as well. Maybe title them Hooker's Kitchen. It covers both you and your son. It is. I was talking to Buddy about that before. In our shops, Lois, they've just started selling bone broth from a company, and in a little bottle, plastic bottle, $9 a pint. Yeah, I know, you've fallen off your chair, haven't you? $9 a pint. Hello, Danny. I can make it for a lot cheaper than that. It takes a long time to make it, but it's well worth it. And I know there's been a trend recently that all these, and I'm going to say it, yuppie channels say, bone broth, have a cup of bone broth a day, it's good for your health. So it's taken off on that side of things. I don't mind, because it's true, it is good for you. But it's been around, let's be honest, as soon as someone created a clay pot, let's say thousands of years ago, chuck in a few animal bones and some water and maybe some local herbs. So it's not new, is what I'm saying. The fundamentals of life are in the marrow. Yeah, that's what I mean. Actually, people would buy it off you. Just find a yuppie crowd. Go down to, where the yummy mummies have their morning coffee and tea with their cake. Say, hi, I'm Lois, and I sell bone broth. $10 a gallon. I wonder if he'd be confident enough to have his own channel. Awesome. I'm not telling you to do that, of course, but I wonder whether he would get the pride, and of course we could all point to him, and maybe get quite a crowd to follow him. I'm on it. Hello. Yeah, Awesome. You've got to go to Awesome's channel. There are 2 cooking videos. I've only been waiting 7 years for Awesome to put a cooking video up. Well, maybe 5. But she's now started to do them, and what she's put up initially is good, earthy, tasting food. So go and have a look at those. And her son was the sous chef. In other words, he helped tip in the rice, bits and pieces. And he soon will be doing some cooking videos with the camera being in Awesome's hand. Yeah, let him do a few on your channel first. I think he'll be surprised by the interest. Particularly, he's a young man, and he might encourage other young people to do a little bit of cooking. I tell you what is so simple that people don't get, is just cooking eggs. There are so many ways to cook eggs, it's unbelievable. But just to teach someone how to poach an egg, to fry an egg, scramble an egg, omelette. I've had feedback from, there was a young woman years ago that said, oh wow, I can now make an omelette. And I'm thinking, well, you could always make an omelette, but you obviously didn't have the knowledge. And that's what you're passing on, Awesome, above everything else. Even to experienced cooks that look at your cooking, they'll pull a piece of what they like out of it for themselves. They'll steal it, if you like. But also the people that have no idea about cooking will certainly learn something. So you're doing a great service by passing on knowledge. I did that, Lois. I taught all my kids the basics, and they're all pretty damn good cooks now. Awesome, get him to do a video cooking eggs 4 ways or something. I mean, you'll just eat what he cooks anyway, so it's not going to go to waste. Yeah, there's some pretty tough stuff that the Aussies went through, buddy. We had Japan bomb Australia, and if you looked on the map of Australia, on the middle of our west coast, the top coast, and even Japanese mini submarines went into Sydney. One particular one fired on a certain place and killed a few people in Sydney. So we were under attack in World War II. Darwin in particular got bombed to the shit house.
It'd be interesting actually doing a cooking or food video. What people ate in the depression and all back then.
Oh yeah, I mean, I could probably, I'm pretty sure Buddy's got a fair knowledge on that too, and probably Awesome, and maybe some more of you, is not so much depression food, but cooking with what they had. In other words, pretty basic stuff: potatoes, onions, cabbage, flour, eggs, you know what I mean? There was a lovely old lady who used to have a channel. She passed away. Her son used to film her. It was called Laura's Kitchen. Oh, a long time ago. Laura passed away a long time ago. And she used to just do depression cooking. Really basic stuff. Tasty, but really, really tasty stuff. I used to be fascinated as a kid watching people cook. I'd be saying, oh, so you don't have the heat up so high and you add that first. And so I got a pretty good memory. And what people cook on. But yeah, Laura's Kitchen was, I'm not sure if her video channel is still up. Her son used to do the videography for it. And she was just down to earth. She said, now I put in the cabbage. Now I put in a bit of salt. And I mean, just good stuff to watch.
Oh God,
Cabbage was a filler in stew. I bet there was some cabbage in Buddy's stew. You always chuck a bit of shredded cabbage in there. Her channel is still up, yeah. Well, if you want to put a link into it for the other guys in Awesome, you're welcome to do that. Because I loved what she used to do. I think she was about 93 or 94 when she passed. But to her, it was just normal cooking. My grandmother was the same. My grandparents, obviously born in the 18-somethings, and I would listen to her say things about, you know, some months it was just whatever you had in your garden, and they'd between a village they'd find a beast and either pay for it equally and cut up meat and bones. And pig was the most common because it was quick and fast to grow. It could be depression cooking. I'm not sure. There you go. Awesome's put it in. Have a look at it. And Laura was a lovely old lady. Oh, Clara, sorry. She was a lovely old lady on grinders and sandwiches. Yep. But it's like, I'll give you an idea, one of the most common things I remember saying in the late 60s my mum used to do, if she had any leftover roast beef, bit of roast pork, maybe some roast pheasant, sometimes we'd catch pheasants by hand, she would get the mincer out and she'd mince all the meat together. And it was a big deal. I mean, we didn't get a lot of meat, but we'd have fresh bread made, butter, and this minced meat on top, a little bit of salt and pepper. Loved it. It's like I used to love as a kid going to my grandfather's, and after the roast on Sunday, you'd whip down as fast as you could so you could get the dripping and put it on a bit of toast. Imagine kids doing that today, racing towards the pan, which is looking all oily and crappy, and scraping out the lard to put on a piece of toast or fried bread. It was quite common when I was a kid. And rabbit, I don't know how much rabbit I've eaten, but it would be a field of them, I imagine. Yeah, I'm contemplating. I made pies yesterday, and I'm thinking I've got enough mix there. But there's so much you can do with it. It's meat and vegetable, the contents of the pie, and that could be turned into a soup, turned into like a calzone, whatever you like. But it could be just as well just reheated up and put on a piece of toast. Yeah, pigs, rabbits, chickens, they were pretty much common like in a Victory Garden. Normally what they used to do in the UK, they have allotments, buddy, and during the war, they turned them into Victory Gardens. In other words, they weren't just individual plots, they opened everything up and everyone helped each other. And there would be people go around on bicycles to people's places, like old folk who couldn't get out, and drop off some carrots and swede and turnips and cabbage and eggs, you know what I mean? So it was really a community garden in its true sense. And they're pretty big still in the UK, allotments. They are available in Australia, very few people do it. When I first came to Australia, everybody grew a garden. In the 60s, everyone had gardens.
People were doing verge gardens so that anyone walking past
Yeah,
pick it.
it's a popular thing in some cities. Melbourne does it, Sydney does it, I think Perth does it. Instead of growing flowers out of the front of people's places, on the verge, which is really council land anyway, or county lands as you would call it, they grow vegetables, and there's a little sign there saying, when in season, grab what you like. A bit of cabbage, carrots, whatever. So people can just walk past with a basket, top up with a bit of, that's a community sense type thing.
There's a city garden somewhere that did the same thing.
Yeah, remember that lady used to buy seeds from us, we used to give them a heap of seeds as well, but they had one East Perth, which is only over there.
House of Eyes.
Yeah.
Weeded it, painted new stuff.
Just realised I've started talking about gardening and Awesome's here. I apologise. But you'll have your own garden here shortly, Awesome, don't panic. About where that, down the back there, see that? About there, Awesome's garden. Actually we had the backyard slash yesterday because it was getting a bit hairy. But sharing your knowledge of food doesn't mean everyone will copy what you do. What they will do, like I say, is take some of the ideas that you've presented and make it their way, which is fine by me. We all make things differently. It's like I do not use a lot of salt in cooking. I will season meat before I brown it off, if you like. But I rarely put salt in any dishes I make, particularly cornflakes. Just kidding.
What?
I'm kidding. I'll wait for someone to pick up on it. Yep, so I can't wait till your son does a couple of videos. And if you like, you do the talking. You know, like he's adding the seasoning now and he's going to shallow fry this, whatever. If he doesn't want to talk, you can do that.
Or you put it in text.
Or in text. Or over, you know, what you do, you overlay. Yeah, I'm the same on it. I don't like a lot of salt. You can put salt into a dish, you just can't take the bloody thing out. In that shed over there, that one there, I've got some really good cooking equipment. I've got this stone, I don't know what to describe it. I want to make my lasagnas, and it's about 4 inches deep. It's made out of stone. It just cooks lasagna like you wouldn't imagine. So I haven't made any. And I had a funny thing happen to me the other day. I went down and bought a new pan to go into the stove. It was like about 1/8 of an inch too wide.
Which is, then I did the same thing.
And then the wife bought one the other day saying, I'll fix it, I'll get one. And that wouldn't fit either. It's not that Aussie Awesome doesn't have the skill. You just have cats that don't like plant life. So that's the bottom line. I will do a little vertical garden to show Awesome how she can do her kitchen herbs. And she might name 7 or 8 herbs that she regularly uses, and I'll do 7 or 8 pots hanging off a wall, getting some nice sun, and show how easy that is to do. So the cats have to be very creative to jump up the wall. But we're going to do a... yeah, I have no problem. If we lost power and plumbing, I'll have my solar system finished shortly. And I've got a shovel, buddy. So no problem with the dunny. Australians for a very long time just had outside dunnies. Plop. I'm not sure where I'm going to put my rainwater tank yet. We've got to decide what we're doing down the back, but I will have a rainwater tank. Even, I mean, we'll make cups of tea and coffee out of it because we like rainwater, but it'll mainly be for the gardens. Free water. There's an old book I read years ago about water, and it works on the principle, and it's quite generous when you think about it. Well, that's right. So they sometimes can't cook, but they wouldn't survive if they didn't, let's be honest. Yeah, I like my own herb. Dry herbs are a lot stronger, but it's good doing your own. I'll have my big stack of plaited garlic by this time next year. Yeah, but that book I read, buddy, was about surviving on a gallon of water a day for one person, which is a lot of water when you think about it. People go, oh no, a gallon's not much. Well, it is if you have to survive on it. You know, you're supposed to drink, 2 litres. So that's about half of the gallon gone. But that means you can cook with it, you can wash yourself in it. If you've ever been in any sort of uniform, you know that they used to give you a cup full of water to bathe in, to shave in. That's it. That was just for your personal hygiene. A cup, or about, 10 ounces. And you had to bathe in that, which means you heated it up, got a rag, tipped a bit of water on it, and wiped yourself down. There is so much to eat in the bush. I know a fair bit about it. I don't know a lot about it. I know a fair bit. I know what I can't eat. I know what I can eat. So I'll be fairly limited, but I'm fine. But the thing about my country is that we would never run out of protein. We're an island, for starters, so there's fish everywhere. But we have feral goats, pigs, millions upon millions of kangaroos, and we wouldn't go hungry. In times of absolute desolation, making even the basics of making fresh water from seawater gives you 2 results. One, you end up with salt, and then after a second condensation, you condensate and drip off into a different container, and then you do it again to clarify, and you end up with fairly fresh water that won't kill you. And one of the major things in total desolation is to have salt. Not to eat, but to preserve. Yeah, you can make vinegar. It's not that hard to make vinegar. So if you've got vinegar and you've got salt, you've got containers, you happen to catch a dozen rabbits, well, you can cook them all up, put them in glass jars, can't you? For months. Corned beef. Out of a tin, kiwi. I've had spam, and if I had to, I'd eat it. The only way I would eat it though is I like to give it a bit of a fry, get it a bit crispy. Other than that, some people love it. I mean, if you're in Hawaii, I mean, that's spam central, Hawaii. It's like different cultures eat differently. Like in Thailand and Vietnam, they're pretty much the same. An average person would eat about 6 to 7 times a day.
They've got the island of ducks
Yeah, yeah,
for the
yeah. We went up the Mekong. Yeah, I was looking for Marlon Brando. No, we were just on holiday in Vietnam, up the Mekong. They have islands specifically developed for geese, actually. They were geese. There was thousands of geese, and all the local villages are allowed to take a geese a month. In other words, they're fed by some sort of group of people, raised and put on the island. But each family is allowed a geese a month, and the geese are pretty big. Oh, hi. Oh, yeah, so you had spam rice and tomatoes. Yep. I've got a couple of Hawaiian friends, and they love spam. They'll cook it in just about everything. Me, not so much. I'll tell you what I found, buddy, when I was in cadets, like, you know, at school, cadets, we were given 1942 rations, and there were things like steamed pudding, bully beef, as we called it here, all different cans of food. Now, this was the 70s, like early 70s, so it was about 30 years old. Bloody perfect. Nothing wrong with the stuff. Little jams in tins, biscuits, everything was in tins. It wasn't in packages, it was tins. But I thought it was pretty good. So tin food will last a very long time. Best way to find out if tin food is no good is when you open it. And you go, oh, yeesh. Throw it out. But if it's still good, you can eat it. Some experts say that the tin food of today is not as well done as the tin food of yesteryear. And I can believe that. If you were a kid and you remember picking up a tin of, say, baked beans in 1960, it was a lot heavier, thicker. It took a lot of people, most people opened their baked beans with knives in the old days. Canned fruit, I remember the peaches as well from the World War II era. But the idea of the planet going to crap is not far-fetched at all. I mean, we are susceptible to so much. And I am not a doomsdayer, don't even think that. But I'm a realist. I do realise that if something happened and hit us from outer space, or some major catastrophe on planet Earth itself, volcanoes, earthquakes, and these are all realities. There's no hypotheses there. But the biggest one, of course, is epidemic. It means all the infrastructure remains the same, but a bad epidemic, or pandemic, if you like, could wipe out half the planet. And I'm not a doomsday, I'm just a realist. But during the time from when something like that started and the time that it ended, it could be a decade, if you know what I mean. So we're talking, yeah, well, there's a pandemic on now, and people might think, oh, well, in a couple of weeks, it'll all be good. No, it'll be decades, because what happens is the transfer of the pandemic happens at different times. There'll be no airplanes flying, there'll be no boats travelling. So you talk about what does that mean well, there'll be different outbreaks over a decade until eventually some people who were immune to it, some people who avoided it, would remain. That's what happens. The biggest one that is in our time frame, we weren't alive then, but in 1916, hence the name Spanish flu, because that's where it first started off in Spain, that killed more people in 18 months than all of the victims of World War I. And that is staggering when you put that into context. It killed more people percentage-wise than in some villages and towns than the bubonic plague. You know, they worked on an estimate that about half the people died under the various time frames that the bubonic plague occurred, but the Spanish flu was brutal. It would wipe out complete villages, you know, 3,000 people dead. It was staggering, and then of course it actually ended up in the trenches. So don't worry about foot rot and getting shot. I mean, you could more likely die of the Spanish flu than get killed. But so that was a pandemic. That was worldwide. And there's no reason to believe that modern medicine will come across, and they have already, untreatable diseases that if became pandemic, there's nothing we could do. In other words, you just sterilise everything, you try and capture your own rainwater, you get down to the process of, well, we better grow some of our own food, because you don't want to go to areas or receive goods from an area that is under contamination. So that would shut down the world fast, in a big way. Wouldn't be long before most power stations were closed. It wouldn't be long before there'd be no food, very shortly actually, within a week if you were lucky. And again, I'm going to emphasise, I'm not a doomsday, but I'm a realist, and if it did happen, if you've got knowledge of growing produce, of garnishing water in many forms, you can get water from a tree. I wish I'd have done a video years ago where you just wrap a big plastic bag around 2 or 3 big branches, tie it off at the top, and you wait for the sun to do its job through osmosis, which means the tree trunk pulls the water from below ground and it pushes it out through those leaves that are under stress because you've got the plastic bag around, because it wants to keep the branch alive. You end up with this an enormous amount of water in a short period of time. The red tick. Well, I'll tell you what, I knew it was a fact, but I didn't realise how many. There are around 5,000 to 10,000 species of life. You put that in any form you like. Fish, insects, bugs, discovered every year on planet Earth, which again is staggering. But in the same process, we lose about 5,000 to 10,000 species a year. So is that evolving? Maybe. But I think the fact is that we haven't discovered all of the bugs, snakes, insects, fish that are on our planet even now. But like I say, if you have knowledge, not only can you save yourself, but you can save others. People with knowledge under that duress of a pandemic, to give you an example, could save lives in their hundreds. And then you need people who can lead to get people to go in groups to harvest or hunt and gather. So that would naturally take a process. Hitler's dream, killer bugs. Anyway, I've got a feeling Wilson may open a chat. She may not. Maybe she can do a live cooking show. There's a thought. Well, I'm going to toodle off, and good to catch up with you good people. Love talking about food. Like I say, when I get my new computer, when the extension is finished, I will invite the Bobby Boppers, the Awesomes, the Ionites, all you guys. Come on and we can chat. That way I don't have to do all the bloody talking. And I can wander off and go for a leak, make something to eat, and no one knows I'm gone. Anyway, have a great day and enjoy life. That's what it's for. Catch you good people later. Bye-bye.